Let us go ahead and start. Hello, welcome everyone to How to Start Your Grant Writing Career. We're happy to have you joining us today and appreciate you taking time from your busy schedules. My name is Kimberly and I am part of the QGIve team. And if you haven't had the opportunity to work with us before, we are an online fundraising platform dedicated to helping nonprofits raise more money. And part of how we do that is through webinars like this one. So today's webinar will be right about 45 minutes or so with a Q&A session to follow, keeping our total time together to just under an hour. We are recording the presentation today, and we will send each of you a follow-up email, which will include a recording of today, a copy of Carolyn's presentation, as well as some links and some special offers and resources that we'll discuss a little bit later. So please look for your email tomorrow afternoon. We are live tweeting this webinar highlights today at hashtag QGiveWebinar. So if you are a Twitter user, please follow us and join the discussion. Our username is QGive. And if you do have questions at any point during the presentation, please go ahead and pop them into the questions, the Q&A box, and Carolyn will be ready to answer and discuss those at the end of the webinar. So you will, after today, be prompted as you're ending the webinar to respond to a survey. So your feedback is crucial in determining future content for webinars and other resources. So hopefully you can answer those short 4 questions for us. And let us see. So before we dive in today, we really wanted to just take a quick peek at QGive's background, mission, and offerings. We've been around helping nonprofit organizations implement and grow their online fundraising programs since 2007. And as the importance of online giving has grown, our mission has remained the same, and that is to help others fulfill their passion to make a difference. We do that through a comprehensive suite of fundraising tools featuring donation forms, event registration, peer-to-peer fundraising, text giving with outbound messaging, and auction events. So we value our relationships and are so proud to connect our nonprofit friends to our partner network in hopes that this helps increase your nonprofit's effectiveness and success. And today we are extra excited to introduce you to one of our partners, Carolyn Appleton, who is a major gift fundraiser and nonprofit communications expert. Whoops, I skipped a slide. So basically, Carolyn, without further ado, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll jump right into the presentation.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I'm a big QGive fan. I actually have installed QGive myself. I learned about it from a local nonprofit tech club Austin program. And it just so happened one of my nonprofits I was working with needed gift processing. So I literally hacked it and learned it. And since then, I've installed it for a couple of others. So it really is a great platform. And that's something I do aside from grant writing is I love technology and new technology. So this, of course, is my background. I've just given you the gloss. I am actually a professional member today of N10 Nonprofit Technology Network. I find for today's digital world, that is just an outstanding resource and super friendly. And I have membership long time since graduate school, Honor Society of Phi Kappa Phi. That's me and Bruce Bader Ginsburg. Really honored to be in the company of such great members. The National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution. And I put here my current volunteer commitments because in addition to work, I really do donate a lot of my time and expertise. Bee Cave Arts Foundation. I live on the western edge of Austin in Bee Cave. It's a great group. Book Spring. I'm the literacy chair for the Daughters of the American Revolution here in Austin at the Austin Colony chapter. And so Book Spring is a special focus for our chapter. Charities, I've been a member since learning about them at a prior nonprofit tech club meeting. Citizens Climate Lobby, I curate the Twitter feed. Follow us at CCLATX. And I believe in alleviating global poverty and improving access by everyone on our planet to vaccines and life-saving vaccines for all kinds of diseases through the One campaign. And so our elected officials probably recognize my name on a lot of emails and tweets and that kind of thing. So there you go. That's what I'm up to. Now, Kim, the next slide. There. I wanted to dedicate this webinar today to the many people who reached out via my blog. It was founded in 2011 asking for advice about how to become a grant writer and a nonprofit fundraiser. I really have enjoyed getting to know everyone. And really, when I was talking to Kim, she said, would you do a webinar? I said, oh, sure. What is something that, you know, is a little bit off the beaten track, actually, and that is you don't realize how many people are trying to change careers. Young people just getting started up, people in college, people returning to universities to get a degree. I mean, just all ages, all backgrounds, people transitioning from office environments. There are lots of them. So I dedicate my presentation to them. Because I have learned so much about them and what they're doing. So that informs my webinar today. Next slide. So here you go. These are just a few of the many questions that came on my blog. I actually am a major give fundraiser, but one of the top subject matters that is hit on the search engines is grant writer, how to become a grant writer, how to write a grant over and over and over and over. In fact, one of my main grant writing blog articles has had over 30,000 hits on it. I mean, it's just, that blows me away. So I'll be covering all of these great questions. Next slide. Now, today agenda, I just wanted to be sure you knew I had an order to my thoughts here today and discussion. I'm going to talk about my experience, about volunteering and mentoring as a way to gain experience, grant writing training, community colleges and universities, online learning, of which there are many great programs today, ones that I like. Those transitioning from other fields. I'm going to give you 3 examples of people who in other types of fields and how their life skills are going to work well in the field. And I'm going to close with the mindset of grant writers and fundraisers, what you should expect. So there you go. Next slide. Okay, how did I become a grant writing professional? My path was not straightforward at all. I do step back, actually. When I look at it today and all the grant writing that I have done, one of the best things I ever did, I was even elected to the National Honor Society in high school. But taking that typing course in college was huge. It was huge. I typed quickly, accurately, and that is a skill you're really going to want to have when you're doing grant writing and research as well. I have 2 academic degrees, and those required me to conduct research, to analyze various topics, to write my findings down, and present the information I discovered in writing and occasionally verbally. And so those were excellent skills to carry forward in the field of grant writing. And I would say I put myself through school, and I had a variety of part-time office jobs, and that was invaluable information, how to work in an office, the big picture, being super organized, accountable, collecting information, all that is the kind of skill that you're going to want to have going into grant writing. It's not just a philosophy, it's real work, but these are all really great places, great experiences to have. Next slide. Now, one thing I like to tell people is volunteering can really make a difference. When I was in graduate school, I was in art history, and I decided I needed to gain some real life experience. Basically, I knew that I loved the arts, but I wasn't going to become a PhD and just be a teacher researcher. I certainly loved all that, but I really liked people and development. And so the idea came to me that maybe I'd work in an art museum. So there was a local art museum at the time that was quite good. And I applied and I became a volunteer. And I was assigned to the art school. And there I had the administrator track records, like how many classes are there, who's registered, what classes need more registrants so we can promote them, who is paid, who is not paid, all of that details. But here's what I'm trying to convey ultimately is I made it a point to volunteer on a regular weekly basis, a couple of hours a week. So I strive to do an excellent job, even though I was not being paid. So it wasn't, I staffed the gala once, that was fun. So a year goes by and maybe I'll staff it again next year. I mean, I did it every week for a year. And so I both learned myself what was going on at that art museum, but I also really made a good friend in the art school administrator. Next slide, please. And I was noticed by the development director. You know, I was really a presence at that little art museum, and they saw that I could write and take, you know, good record, keep good records, that type of thing. So after a year, I was offered a part-time job. And then 4 years later, that led to my being hired full-time and serving as coordinator of a $6 million endowment campaign. So I did have a lot of skills going into it, kind of accidentally, but I applied those, and then I learned on the job. Boy, I was like a sponge. Next slide. So one of the best things that happened to me when I finally did land that job part-time and then full-time was the little art museum sent me to attend the Grantsmanship Center training course, a week-long one, which is not cheap to do. And so I traveled to Los Angeles. Today, the Grantsmanship Center offers courses all over the United States. They travel, and it's online too. But I had to travel at that time to Los Angeles from Texas. So it was a big commitment. And I admit, I was a bit still of an academic, you know, shy academic researcher type person. So it was a bit intimidating because they forced me to answer questions. You know, it was a big class. I remember that. And you had to be paying attention, by golly. You know, that it wasn't a matter of just sitting back and absorbing, you know, the information conveyed. They were like, what about this? What do you think? So I stuck with it. I was jolted. I'll never forget it as long as I live. I learned so much. The kinds of things I learned during that were how many different kinds of funders there are, how they're alike, how they differ, because they do. Government agency is different from a private foundation. I learned about research, how to organize grant proposals and step into the shoes of potential funders and kind of view the world from their perspective and what I should respond to in that regard. Timelines, deadlines, budgeting, how to develop a compelling case statement, and more. So years later, I remain in contact with the Grantsmanship Center. Still today, it's a long time ago, but I love them. So next slide. Now, I'm going to read from this book, which I have right here. I have collected a lot of books through my academic training and through my professional work over the years, but I usually donate them once I'm done. But this book I keep. This is the Bible for grant writers, in my opinion. And some people don't want to invest the money in an expensive training course till they kind of get an idea of what's actually involved with grant writing. And I would say this is the book for you. Just order the book, have a look, check it out. And then if you stick with the field of grant writing, you're going to want to keep this book. Pablo Eisenberg in the foreword to this book says, in my view, this widely celebrated publication remains, after 40 years, the best handbook about how to win grants. It is also a tool that brings focus to the essential elements of operating a successful organization. It neither preaches nor sets arbitrary standards. What it does is advise nonprofits to follow a logical approach in developing their goals, objectives, plans, and funding strategies. And Pablo is with Georgetown University, and he's written for the Chronicle of Philanthropy and the Huffington Post. So I can recommend this highly. Next slide. Now, you might be interested in pursuing a degree, or maybe a community college near you offers some grant writing training. I find today in the continuing education division of universities, there's oftentimes grant writing courses that are available to the public, to alumni, and the like. So you might check with a local community college and also your local universities. When I began, I admit I'm getting older, but when I started, there was no college curriculum. There was no university degree you could get in nonprofit management and fundraising. Everyone was an accidental grant writer or fundraiser. And it's interesting as I look back, one of the common conversations that we would have at our professional associations and meetings and that type of thing was, well, so how did you get into grant writing? It's like, well, I was actually getting a medical degree when somebody knows I could write. And then, so I could say I was actually getting a master's degree in art history when I became an accidental grant writer and fundraiser. But today, now, decades later, there are a lot of really great nonprofit management programs at universities across the nation, from Harvard to the University of California. I mean, you need to get online and check those out. Those cover all aspects of nonprofits and nonprofit management, and fundraising is usually included in the mix there. But I did want to point out a favorite of mine, the University of Indiana, the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. If you are new, getting just in college, wanting to find a really good program, I follow all the reports that that this Lilly Family School puts out, its affiliations. It is absolutely top notch. I use a lot of their research actually in my grant proposals. So check out what they call the fundraising school. So next slide, please. Now, here's another resource. Just check them out. US News and World Report today actually does have a section that they update each year called Best Nonprofit Management Programs. So I always send people there, and it's only been the past couple of years that this has been a fixture with US News and World Report. But if you're interested in a degree in this field, you'll want to check that out. Next slide, please. But there are other organizations that can really help. You may just need a quick course on, like, what is it to do a grant? I don't need a whole curriculum or whatever. But anyway, the Association of Fundraising Professionals has chapters across the nation. Get on their website, check them out. They're global now. They offer webinars and conferences, so there are quite a few good programs there. And but what you see here on your screen is Candid Learning. Now, you may have noticed the past couple of years, for those in fundraising, that Candid became the parent organization for the Foundation Center, which is the nation's leading research database for foundation funding sources, and also GuideStar, which absorbs all the tax returns every year from every nonprofit all over the nation. And you are encouraged to get on there and for free set up a tandem, profile that showcases all the great things you do, because professional advisors are looking at how you operate your tax returns. So GuideStar is a really great resource. But anyway, Candid Learning also has an educational division. People are not quite aware of that. And so it's quite good, very reputable. And this is the proposal writing website page, just a little capture from that. So I recommend them highly. So next slide. Now, there are others that can be helpful to you in the nonprofit sector. I've mentioned NTEN. I'm a professional member with NTEN. I find, because the world has gone so digital, when I need help on something, I'm going to go to NTEN. I learned more from that than almost any other group. So they are, again, covering a lot of topics, and grant writers and fundraising are part of that mix. You can get online and have a conversation, like just community questions, that type of thing. And they are very helpful and user-friendly. TechSoup is also focused on technology. Many of you may know about them. You can get lots of discounts on software and equipment, all kinds of things. So they have moved the past few years into educational arena. And I noticed recently a grant writing section on their website. So you might like to get on there and avail yourself of some of their courses on demand or future in-person ones, or join a local tech club. Sometimes they'll cover topics related to fundraising and grant writing, but also search online. I recently received an email about a community foundation offering a grant writing seminar. Libraries I've seen, definitely local libraries, and there are other groups that offer them. So these are really helpful resources, and again, super user-friendly, which I like. Next slide. Now, here is the group kind of leading up to the grant writing specifically here. If I were going to be specifically a grant writer, then this is the group. Grant Professionals Association. Again, it also has chapters across the nation. If you get on the website, you're going to find a map and local contact information. And if you don't find a local chapter, just get in touch with them directly. They're really responsive, and they are focused on grant writing. I mean, they're really great. And I have talked at a prior conference before, and it's one of my favorites. So I would definitely say GPA could be the group for you. They also offer the Grant Professionals Certification Institute. And having formal accreditation from a group like GPA is a real plus. I would definitely recommend that. You need to be able to say you've actually done some grant writing and then study for the exam and see if you can get that certification, but totally worth having. Now, again, reach out to GPA. I find them to be super friendly. And usually if people email me on my blog, I'll say, where are you based? And I'll find the contact, or I may even call them and connect them. So that's a great way to go. But also, you might enjoy Grant Chat on Twitter. Actually, today I was looking on my iPhone over here, and they have postponed today's chat. Usually during the lunch hour, broadly speaking, they have Twitter chats, and they're people of all backgrounds. There's some new people have been around for years and years, but they'll have kind of a theme. Like, if you encountered this issue, what would you do? And you can just sit there and read the tweets and see what you think, but it's a lot of fun. So next slide, please. Now, the other thing is that our sector is diverse. There are some really big areas of interest, fields of interest, I would say. And you can get training that has more of a slant toward these areas. Like if you're in healthcare, if you're interested in working with a hospital, a medical clinic, with supporting medical research, then AHP, Association for Healthcare Philanthropy, is probably a good choice. CASE, boy, higher education fundraising is a really big area for the nonprofit sector. So Council for Advancement and Support of Education is very solid. It's really a great group. Now, also, I put in here National Association of Charitable Gift Planners. And the reason I put that is we're in the middle of a wealth transfer from now through the next 20 years. And so planned giving is on the ascendancy. So I would say, especially if you're transitioning, say you were a broker or a financial advisor and you wanted to move over to the nonprofit sector, this is an outstanding group. They do have chapters all over and affiliates all over the nation, not quite as big as some of these others, but still very reputable. And you might like switch to advising clients about, supporting charitable work as well. So next slide, please. Now, the reason I included this information is I think whatever you choose to do, wherever you are in your career, you want to make a good choice about where you get training or seek advice. The Foundation Center, which I showed you earlier, the proposal writing section of their website, they've been around since 1956. I mean, it's a long time and they're very trustworthy. So I would say if any of these groups have been that you're looking at have been around for a while, that personally, I would ally with them because I think you're going to get, and they're still in existence today, even after COVID lockdowns, that these are going to be safe. National Society of Fundraising Executives changed its name to Association of Fundraising Professionals. They've been around since 1960. The Grantsmanship Center, which I referenced in like a lot, 1972, been around a long time. Certified Fundraising Executive, which really is a bit more broad in focus, and it serves many focus areas of fundraising and many types of fundraising. It's kind of aimed at professionals with 5 years of experience to get them certified. So 1981, that's really good. TechSoup. A lot of people think of tech as kind of semi-new, but TechSoup's been around a long time. They're really solid and trustworthy. Grant Professionals Association, which I adore, GPA since 1998, and Nonprofit Technology Network since 2000. So these are reputable. I think with all the flood of information, and here's a course, and here's an online course, and free, you get distracted. What you want is a quality provider for sure. You can get good information from more recently formed organizations. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that you want to make sure the quality of information you're getting is top notch. Next slide, please. Now, transitioning. Yes, you can, and your life skills and work experience are valuable. I have been approached by several accountants actually saying, I've had it. I don't want to do this anymore. Could you tell me how I get to work as a grant writer? So I will tell you this, as time has moved forward, I've noticed in grant proposals, the budget can be the most important part of the proposal more and more. I know a couple of grant makers where the budget section is really large and the description, written storytelling part of it is pretty small. You don't get a whole lot of space to fill that out. So you can tell a compelling story through budgets. And if you're an accountant, our sector needs your help. And I do say, even for those who, are doing just a pretty standard grant proposal, that still the budget is really important, how you convey that information. Legal professionals, I've had several reach out to me that don't feel very fulfilled in their job. So competition for grants is fairly intense, I would say, and a clear, well-argued case, a focus on the facts, and a reduction of excessive discussion, i.e. storytelling, is a plus. Now, you want to tell stories, you want to captivate your audience and your potential donors, but you might need to relegate most of that storytelling to your social media platforms and your website. It's not that you don't want to write well in a grant proposal and try and hook the funder with a really great description of what you're doing, but if you can get carried away, and that's a lot of times. I've had a foundation officer actually tell me this. I have 100 grant proposals here, and if I cannot see what you want, when you want it, why you want it right away, I'm going to turn the page to the next grant proposal. So you have to realize, put yourself in the mind of the donor. So a legal mindset is a good thing to have, actually. Next little. And I come from, office work. So office administrators of all levels, I think organizational skills are really great. You need to be, responsive to the whole, attentive to details, understand the big picture, be good at recording and data gathering and all that. If you've got all those skills, they are skills that our sector needs. Next slide, please. Now I'm closing with a couple of thoughts on what you need if you want to be a grant writer. You know, what working as a grant writer actually is. And one thing it really does require is a focus and quiet time. You're going to be spending long stretches of time in a quiet environment, hopefully. And if you're not in a quiet environment, you're going to be in big trouble. I have worked with nonprofits in co-working spaces that it was impossible. I mean, there are just so many people and talking, and it was all fun and everything. But if you want to really write a solid grant proposal, I would say quiet environments are really great to have. And so it is in many ways a good career for at-home working, I would say. So I do think you need to connect with fellows in person in the office and through meetings and other gatherings. But when it comes to really research and writing, quiet is important. And obviously, you need to write comfortably and grammatically. Most proposals I find today are online, but not all of them. I recently did a grant proposal where I had to, I certainly wrote it all up and researched it, built it all out. Then I had to hard copy 10 copies and FedEx it to the administrator of that foundation. And so it was for every member of the board. So sometimes it is hard copy that you have to produce. And I also recommend, obviously, document your work. If you step down the line to future jobs in grant writing, people will often ask, nonprofits will ask, may I see an example of your grant writing, a prior grant that you wrote? And I do believe that, you might want to wait a few years before you share a grant proposal, because there is proprietary information in grant proposals. But after a few years, I think it's safe to do that. But you'll need to document your work if you really had a lot to do with that particular proposal and its success. Keep a copy, keep it in the cloud, safe. And I also would like to mention that sometimes fellow staff and even your executive director are not going to even understand really what you're doing. They just get the money, write a grant, get it. So you need to communicate what you are doing in staff meetings. You might need to communicate that regularly with your executive director, and side to side, peer to peer, just make sure they know. Because sometimes with development, I find other staff in the program area and just any other department that's not development, they do sometimes actually get jealous. It's like, look, she's friends with donors, woo, when they don't realize I'm really a professional doing a job and communicating with donors, yes, but I'm doing that in a professional way. And they don't understand that. So you can't assume that they do. So you have to just communicate, this is what I'm doing. There's research involved. And then we do this and that. You'll need to be organized, as I mentioned, watch those deadlines, grant in reporting, and juggle multiple requests. So that's going to happen. Next slide, please. And you're going to need to be flexible and patient. Of course, grants take time to get reviewed at all once you submit them, but every funder is different. There are individuals, families, foundations, corporations, government agencies. They all have unique interests and needs. So you need to conduct research to make a really good match. Make sure your nonprofit can help them achieve their goals. So that's your mindset. I always try to do more than required and to submit more grant requests than you think you need. And that is simply because there are so many nonprofits out there today seeking funding. And actually had one really well-regarded executive director of a foundation tell me this, said, look, I was like kind of feeling shy at the time about applying. I don't know, is it okay? He said, look, if you don't get in line and submit your request, then 10 other nonprofits are going to get in line ahead of you. So why not just get in there? What's the problem? So don't be shy, but you need to submit more than you need, though, because you are going to have to develop a thick skin and expect rejection. It is not necessarily a reflection on your project at all that you get rejected. It is just a fact that there's so much competition out there. So you have to be the one who keeps going. And a lot of times my psychology on that is this with executive directors, board members, program staff. And I just, they say, we didn't get the grant. Wow, they're all hyperventilating. I said, well, but I have like a couple others in there. So just give it a little time. Let's see what happens. We're not totally out of the water yet. So that's part of the juggling a little bit. But I just do more than I'm requested to do because I think it's self-preservation. And you're also going to be answering a lot of questions, many, and from different points of view, because donors all have different needs and interests. So ultimately, you're going to end up knowing more about your nonprofit than any other member of the staff. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I've known more than most of the staff and the executive director, even when I've done major gift campaigns, and I have to be super accountable to my donors and be able to go, oh, here's the answer to that. And so my point to any executive directors who might be on here is keep those grant officers on staff. Don't let them go, because you may not realize it, but they're absorbing all this information in order to even submit the most basic grant proposal. And if they leave, you're going to have to start from zero. And it's a lot of waste of time and money. So love your grant writers. And then I have to close again with where I started out. If you can gain real life, meaningful experience at the very start with a mentor and by volunteering, and I mean meaningful volunteering, not just like once a year volunteering, I mean really meaningful volunteering in a development office, then definitely do it. Offer your services. I know it's not paid, but you're not only going to show that nonprofit you can do it, you're going to be networking with that staff. You're probably going to meet other volunteers. It'll be a great environment for you to learn, and you will benefit from that later on. So next slide, please. Now, this is another book from the Grantsmanship Center I reviewed about a year ago for Barbara Floursh, and it's called You Have a Hammer. I think it's really nice. It's not a very long book, but boy, is it a smart book. And I find, as I mentioned, there's a lot of pressure to just get the money. In fact, I've had executive directors say, oh, just GTM, just write a bunch of grants, get them, whatever, do it. So this is a lot of pressure, and we as grant writers and fundraisers get pushed. Just fill out a grant form, submit it, and get the money. But that's not really what grant writing is per se. There are lots of ways you can generate income for your nonprofit. You can sell t-shirts in the Etsy store or the gift shop. You can have a gala. You can have a fun run. You can do the annual fund. You can have a membership drive. There are lots of ways to fundraise. And grantsmanship is an art form. It is making a match with a funder that shares your interests, and you kind of get together and go, hey, this is a good match. We're going to help you achieve your goals because we have a unique approach to solving the issue you're also concerned about. And here's my story. So I think it's a really great book. You can get this on Amazon. And again, you can get it on the Grantsmanship Center website. And I've reviewed it on Goodreads. So this is just a little snip of a quote from my Goodreads review. Next slide. There you go, Kimberly. Ah, here we go. QGIV blog. There's a really cute interview with me that dovetails with this today. And if you have questions, just email me. That is the best way. In fact, last year I did a webinar, and I had lots of people emailing me, so I could just tailor my responses to your needs. Next slide.
And I do want to point out that almost everything you're mentioning, so the link to last year's webinar and some of the resources are coming out in the email that we'll be sending out tomorrow.
Yay. And thank you. This is a beautiful picture of Austin, and my contact information there. Again, most everyone has got found through my blog. I have a contact form, so that's me. I do all the free charge. I just, we need better grant writers. We need more of them. And if I can be of help to you to get to that point, please let me know. Next slide. And I made this with Adobe Creative Cloud. I'm just showing off. Next slide, Kimberly.
All right. Well, that was fabulous and fun. So I invite everyone to go ahead and if you haven't, I do see a couple questions, to go ahead and put them in the Q&A. I know some folks have put it in chat, and that's fine. I'll field the first one from Pamela to give you a brief moment, Carolyn. Yes, Melena went ahead and shared. So how do you find the QGIve blog? Well, on our website, we have a resource area. There's blogs, there's other things. We have past webinars, ebooks, quite a few different things. Gloria is asking, how could I get a grant writer? So how could she get
you might look at them. You can there are several job boards, Association of Fundraising Professionals. I'm not sure about GPA, but I wouldn't be surprised. Look at some of the professional organizations that I listed early on their website. I know NTEN, mostly to kind of tech.
Yeah, Carolyn, you're coming in and out a little bit. Can you possibly repeat that? It got cut off a little.
Sure. I would look at those support organizations that I listed early on, and the Foundation Center, NTEN, AFP, GPA. Reach out to all of those sources, and they should be able to help you in that regard. Some of them have actual e-job boards, that you can look at and scroll through online right away. But I'd ask them to, especially if you have a really active chapter in your area, just reach out to the chapter and its officers and ask them.
And that may also answer some of Victoria's question, because she said, do you find that there is a lot of work for freelance grant writing?
Yes. And also just look at Indeed. I mean, if you search, you'll see there's a lot of people who need grant writers.
Okay. And then Pamela, you're still cutting in and out just a little. But I think everyone heard her say yes. The answer to Victoria's question is yes. Grant writers are definitely in demand. Pamela's question for you is, how are grant writers paid? By successful proposal, salary, by the hour, staff?
All of those. I would say you would want to create it. Do not in percentage-based fundraising. That's considered a big no-no.
Yeah, Carolyn, you cut out again. It's kind of intermittent. So could you repeat what you just said, please?
Yes, there are many ways that, oh yeah, my video off. I'll do that.
Thank you,
Even
Brendan.
though I have great, there you go. Yeah, that was a good idea. Okay, I think you're going to want to affiliate with a grant writer that does not engage in percentage-based fundraising, because that is considered a no-no in the nonprofit sector. Some people do actually ask me that all the time. If you're not in fundraising, you wouldn't necessarily know. If you were just in sales, it's like, okay, I get that, but that is not what nonprofit fundraising is about. And we are focused on the mission, not how much money that we are going to raise. Your motivation mindset's critically important. So they're paid by the hour. Certainly, they're paid as just a regular employee. paid for a certain number of grants. It just depends what you need, but you just need to make sure your fundraiser is not, and grant writer is not operating under any kind of percentage agreement. Like, oh, you get paid when you get this $100,000 grant for us. You know, it's like, no, I don't think so. It's motivation is critical in that way. So.
Well, thank you. And it is much better since you went off video. I'm hearing you very clearly. So Deborah has asked, are there sites that point you to particular kinds of grants? For her personally, it's art organizations, particularly theaters.
Yes, if I were you, I would get on the Foundation Center database. Now, here is my hot tip for that. That usually involves a fee. But if you have a local library, you can either, I have, for instance, with the Austin Public Library, I have an library card, and I can log into that database myself anytime from my laptop, any place. Or you can go to a library that has that database, and many of them do, and you can sit at a laptop or computer at the library and access it. So I like to get it, you know, for as modest cost as possible. Big universities, big fundraising offices usually go ahead and pay so they can have their own access to that. But I would say the Foundation Center is the best in the nation, and you can input search terms like, I want Dallas, Texas. I want art, theater, performance, and it'll pop up and it'll show who has been funding those topics in your area. So that's my best guess. But also I do a lot of just online searching. Search. I just look and read and see what other people are doing and who's kind of interested in that. So there's independent search, but the Foundation Center by Candid now again is the best.
Now you have a couple questions with the same, pretty much the same theme here. Both Paul and Jim would like to know why not percentage-based incentive for a fundraiser? It's paying for result, not just activity. So if you could maybe expand on that a little for them.
Sure.
Please.
It's very common. People sometimes get embarrassed when they ask me that. Will you work for a percentage of the grant? And it's like, basically, you want to, when you go out to fundraise, and when I go out to fundraise for a project and I write a grant, I spend hours and hours doing a really great job of developing a case statement, why you should support it. But I don't need to have in my head that, wow, I need to get this grant no matter what I say. No, it doesn't matter. I just want to get that grant because I'm going to get paid. So that's not what the nonprofit sector wants you to have in mind when you're seeking funding as through a grant proposal. You want to have the mission. You want to be so compelled by the mission and what the organization is accomplishing that you get the grant, you write a really winning grant proposal and go forward. But it's considered highly unethical, and I believe they are actually trying to make it against the law to take a percentage, because what if I said 20% of, you know, or 25% of $100,000 grant? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I think it's unethical given the nature of social service and benefit to society as a whole to be basing your funding search and grant writing on a percentage. So there is the National Council on Nonprofits. If you will look them up online and look up the ethical fundraising page, there are lots of resources on there, and it'll explain much further than that. But I am always referring to that, again, National Council of Nonprofits ethical fundraising guidelines that do explain a lot of that. So it puts the brakes on the fundraiser. You know, it's basically you agree up front what you will be paid, and that's the ground rules there. And then whatever it is, if I'm asking for $1 million, if I'm asking for $5,000, I mean, basically it does also protect the fundraising staff and professional because of that. So yeah, National Council of Nonprofits Ethical Fundraising. Check that out.
Well, hopefully that answered your question, Jim and Paul. Gloria has asked, what would I put in the library database for grant writer?
Well, you're looking, if you're actually looking for funding to underwrite a grant writer. Is that?
I don't know, Gloria, if you want to do a follow-up to that, and then we'll answer that one. There's another question also about, do nonprofits have grant writers too?
Yes, they do. Sometimes people that are handling multiple types of fundraising will also be doing grant writing. So it's sometimes part of a bigger picture staff position, but some nonprofits do specifically have grant writing staff members. The larger ones do.
So Gloria's followed up with her, what would I put in the library database for grant writing writer? And she says, I am going to be a nonprofit business owner. Does that help you answer? Because if not, it might be so specific that the two of you might want to connect after the webinar.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're looking to find someone, I would first do some research online, and I would look at those professional organizations that I list at the outset, and you'll get a copy of the slides by tomorrow. And I would ask them, just ask them. I admit I have looked at Indeed even and found it's very good to know that, like, for instance, the salary level, who's asking for what. So you can start getting a really great idea from some of the big job boards online, but those professional associations can give you real guidance for your field.
And a couple of people did chime in that they are grant writers for their nonprofits. You have Pamela's asked, what is the typical salary range for a beginning grant writer?
I cannot say with any certainty on that. I think I would definitely do some research about that online with those organizations and those job boards, including companies like Indeed, which is really active in Austin. And I would see, because it varies widely. Some are trying to get people to do grant writing as a volunteer, free of charge. You might actually volunteer match. You might find somebody to do that. I get those in my inbox. I need somebody as a volunteer to do this. So you might find someone for a very modest amount. But a seasoned grant writer who has really a great track record, that is going to command a lot more, a larger salary, I would say, and well worth it.
And let's see, Pamela says, I'm a new grant writer through Volunteer Match. So I don't know if that's helpful for folks. Paul, who had a question earlier about what is intrinsically bad about percentage-based fundraising for a nonprofit, followed up with a rephrased question. He said, perhaps a better way of framing the question would be to explore performance-based fundraising with fixed amounts for successful fundraising milestones rather than as an uncontrolled percentage. Do you have feelings on that one or thoughts on that one, Carolyn?
I think, what the heck? I kind of like that thinking, and especially, I admit this, we're trending toward more data, more review of success, more outcomes. Donors are looking for those kinds of models and reports. So I can understand the way you're rephrasing it, and I think that makes some sense.
Okay, good. Hopefully that helps you, Paul. I think this is going to be our last question because there's a couple in here. Victoria is asking, when you apply to be a grant writer, should you also come prepared to show examples? And do companies hiring you freelance also request proof of writing? And can I substitute grants with, say, a well-written proposal of another type?
Yeah, yes to all those things. I would. I have known people, even though I have many, many years of grant writing experience, over $33 million of grant writing success, but they still, have you ever written a grant? Oh, can I see it? I mean, there's not a lot of trust sometimes. So I do have a few from years past, just in case I need to. But yeah, I think all those things are good though. And I have my blog, of course, is my primary writing sample. And I actually use my blog. So it's not strictly speaking focused on grant writing, but it's a great example of the kind of writing I do.
Yeah, and I know a couple people have definitely wanted your contact information again, so I went back to that slide. So everyone, and again, if you missed it here, everyone's going to receive a copy of it. But here is Carolyn's blog information as well as her email. And I think we're pretty much, except for a couple things, a little bit of housekeeping here, we're pretty much done with the questions. Carolyn, it's just been incredible. Thank you so much. I mean, I learned a lot. Everyone seems to be putting in the chat that this was some great information for them as well. So I did want to thank everyone for joining us today, reminding you we are going to send out the recording and the deck. Carolyn had contacted her friends at the Grantmanship Center, Carolyn? Is that what it
Yes.
is? And
Yes.
there's a couple webinars that they shared with us, a couple discounts that they're offering because Carolyn asked. So that's also going to go out into that email tomorrow. So please be on the look for it. And if you are interested in, contacting the QGIF team as well, our contact information is here. Again, there's Carolyn's email. Don't forget to complete the survey as you're logging off today. And we really do hope that everything we covered today helps you in your grant writing career. And thank you so much for coming. And thank you, Carolyn. Everything was fabulous. I hope everyone has a great afternoon.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.